Voting is continuing in the European parliamentary elections. Over the next 3 days, more than 400 million people will be eligible to cast their vote. Well, people in the United Kingdom have also been voting for their local borough councils, which have been hotly contested. Now, much has been made in this country about the rise of the United Kingdom Independence Party, otherwise known as UKIP, whose primary goal is to take the United Kingdom out of the European Parliament. However, exit polls in Holland seem to suggest that the predicted far-right surge over there may be an exaggeration, with the news that the anti-Islam leader Geert Wilders has only come fourth in the poll. So some mixed results so far. Well, I'm joined in the studio by Zita Holbourne, who's a trades unionist and community activist. A very good morning to you. Obviously, we haven't got the full picture yet, but it does appear as if some elements of Europe's far right haven't perhaps done as well as everyone had assumed they would.
Yes, definitely, and that's good news. I don't know whether the same can be said for how the British public will vote, and you know, it's anticipated that UKIP will gain some votes again.
I mean, Nigel Farage, who's the leader of UKIP, has made it clear that as far as he's concerned, his party is not racist, and it's wrong to lump it together with the Dutch right and the likes of Marine Le Pen of the National Front in France.
Well, he is racist, quite clearly racist. If you see the things that they're talking about, all the anti-migrant comments that have been made, they're clearly racist. Yes, they've put through, you know, some black and Eastern European candidates to try and make out they're not, but they are a racist party, and I would say that they're a far-right party. And this is not good news for, you know, multicultural Britain and black communities in the UK at all. But
he said that he's not racist, and that a lot of people have accused him of this because he wants controls on immigration. Why is that wrong if some of the mainstream parties, in the Labour Party and the Conservative Party, indeed the Liberal Democrats, they've said, look, we want the same thing. We want to control immigration, not just from outside the EU, but also from within.
Well, actually, the three mainstream parties are pandering to UKIP and have been for the past year. So they're saying those things because they're concerned that UKIP were going to, you know, gain votes, and so they wanted to be seen, you know, to hold the same views. And actually, what we've seen is political parties shift to the right.
But is it really a shift, though? Because certainly with the Conservatives, one of their mantras over the years has always been that they are tough on immigration. They don't mind it, but as long as it is controlled.
Well, in times of economic downturn, history tells us that there's always, you know, an increase in racism, and that's what we've seen. We've got the racist immigration bill, now actually an immigration act, although it hasn't, you know, come into force yet, which was largely supported by all three mainstream parties, and that bill seeks to create an apartheid-like state in the UK, with checks not just on immigration. You know, if you're getting married, you're getting a driving licence, you're trying to rent property. Effectively, we're going to see a return of the no blacks, no Irish, no dogs signs.
But they would argue, look, we're not trying to impose some form of discrimination. What it all boils down to is the legality. In other words, the right of somebody to enter this country, to live here legally. And if people are coming here illegally, that is at the expense of people who are born here, or indeed who have come here via a normal procedure, who are paying their way. That's hardly fair.
Well, there's a lot of myths and lies out there about the role of migrant people to the UK. Actually, they claim less benefits than workers that are born here. A lot of people from Eastern Europe, for example, have just stayed for a short period of time, a couple of years, and gone back to their countries of origin. They contribute to the society, and if you look at migrant communities over, you know, decades, even longer in the UK, we are a country that's made up of migrant communities. That's what's built Britain, that's what makes it great, and that's what creates our multicultural society that people celebrate every day.
But it's interesting that you said earlier that the mainstream parties were pandering to UKIP. You also pointed out that there are ethnic minority candidates standing on the UKIP ticket. So is it really pandering, or is it simply the fact that ethnic minorities are saying, look, we are British, we belong to this society, and we don't particularly like it if immigration isn't kept under control. And if the mainstream parties aren't really reflecting what we want, then we're going to go to UKIP. They're speaking our language.
Well, I think it's quite worrying, the fact that there are black and ethnic minority people voting for UKIP and, even worse, you know, standing for UKIP. And I think some people have short memories and they need to remember their history, because it wasn't that long ago that, you know, my parents' generation coming over here from the Caribbean were greeted with those "go back, you're not welcome" signs, no blacks, no Irish, no dog signs. So actually, through history, if you look, the French people face that, Jewish people face that, Muslim people are facing it now, Caribbean and African communities have faced it, and now it's Eastern European people. So there's a history of negativity and racism towards migrants. So black people should remember their history and recognise, actually, for a lot of us who are second or third generation, we're talking about, you know, people's parents and grandparents that experienced this level of racism.
But maybe another way of looking at it is that their involvement with a party which some people may regard as right-wing, but which the leader and indeed many others feel is actually quite normal. There's nothing extraordinary about it. It's just simply the message. What it points to is a protest vote. In other words, complete dissatisfaction with the political mainstream, that perhaps they're not speaking their language, they're not really addressing the issues that matter, and therefore, in that sense, the rise of UKIP, the rise of the National Front in France, they've brought it on themselves, the mainstream politicians.
Absolutely, definitely. I don't think they should have been pandering to UKIP. What they should have been doing is challenging their racist policies, and actually...
But they did actually challenge the policies. We certainly saw that with the debates, for example, between Nick Clegg, who's the leader of they're now part of the coalition government, the Liberal Democrats, and Nigel Farage. He did challenge him on the numbers about the interpretation of the immigration statistics.
Well, more recently, because they're focusing on the elections, they started to challenge them, because they recognised and realised what's going to happen. But I go back to what I was saying about the Immigration Act. The fact that that could go through Parliament and be supported by all three parties says quite a lot about their racist views. And what we're seeing in the UK is that institutional racism is deepening. And we have to look at what's happening to black communities in the UK, black and Asian communities, you know, who are second or third generation in the UK, in terms of job prospects, access to education. And what all of this is doing, the UKIP, the far right, the mainstream parties holding these racist views, it emboldens ordinary people to express racist views and think it's okay to do that. Just the other day, we had Sainsbury's, huge company like Sainsbury's, the supermarket chain, having a "Get Your Slave Look" display in one of their stores, advertising the film 12 Years a Slave, which is absolutely horrendous. So the fact that these things are happening directly links to what we're seeing in politics. And I think also it's worth mentioning that UKIP are not just racist. They're sexist. They think that maternity leave should be scrapped, that young women shouldn't be employed, and they're homophobic as well.
Right, OK, then. Well, look, we have to leave it there. Of course, these results will be coming in, so we should actually have a more rounded picture of what is happening on the European stage. But Zita Holbourne, thank you so much for joining us here on This Day Live. Thank you.